Let's start at the very beginning. What is XPrize? XPrize is an organization that leverages incentivized competitions to create breakthroughs that will, for the benefit of humanity. And the prize that, or the story that actually got our founder, Peter Diamandis, jazzed up was something that happened about a century ago. There was the announcement of the Orteig Prize, and it was essentially, Orteig, excuse me, and it was a prize that challenged folks, aviators around the world, to fly the first transatlantic flight between New York and Paris, whichever way possible. And it was a $25,000 prize. And this is a photo of Charles Lindbergh, the gentleman who won that. About 70 years later, after reading a book called The Spirit of St. Louis, Peter then decided that he was going to do something very similar. He put out a prize to create private spaceflight. He said, if you can fly a spaceship into space twice in 2 weeks with a payload of at least 3 people, I will give you $10 million. Great. Peter didn't have $10 million. It was very Peter-like. But he was so inspired by the book. And so that is what really created XPrize. The X originally was meant to be a variable because there was no sponsor, like I said. Peter didn't have $10 million. But then it stuck. And so after he met the Ansari family and they funded the prize with the $10 million, it became the Ansari XPrize, which may sound familiar to some of you. That was awarded in 2004. This is a photo of the spaceship that was Spaceship One, which actually won the prize, and it's currently in DC, hanging next to, appropriately, the Spirit of St. Louis. So XPrize can put out big prize purses and challenge the world to solve problems. But what we really care about is not just solving that one problem, but also scaling the impact of that. And so there are multiple ways that XPrize actually scales impact. One of them is actually the fact that when you put out a $10 million prize purse, like we did for the Ansari XPrize, the teams actually spend $100 million in R&D. So it's an exponential impact in terms of the money that's put out there as the prize. In addition, once the prize is won, we don't want it to just end there and say, great, somebody won, here you go, $10 million. We were fortunate that there was a gentleman that was at the testing. Some of you may have heard of him, Richard Branson. He decided that he was going to start his own private spaceflight group, and he licensed the technology of Spaceship One and created Virgin Galactic. And so between 2004 and today, the industry has grown from absolutely nothing, or just that one test flight, to a multi-billion-dollar industry. And so that is just one example of how we scale our impact. We are very intentional about it. We try to build it into the way that we design the competitions themselves. We support the teams so that the teams that are competing, so that they have resources and can therefore go out and scale their impact and impact lots of lives as well. And I will get into a little bit about that in a bit. So the bottom line here is XPrize cares about impact at scale, and that's on the right-hand side of this equation. And on the left side, you'll see a couple of the things that go into how we get to impact at scale. First, we're crowd-based. So I'm here to talk to you about how we leverage the crowd to create STEM solutions that have a high impact or has a positive impact on the world. So the first thing is that we are crowd-based. We strongly believe that there is no way that you are going to hire to your company every brilliant person in the world that can help you solve a problem. And so we truly believe in tapping the brilliance of the crowd to make sure that we get the best and brightest minds to work on the problems that we care about solving. Exponential technologies. I mean, it's today, it's the technology of the future. These are the things that make up those solutions that can solve the issues of today, the grand challenges. Partnerships. Without our partners, we would not be able to scale. For example, if some of you are familiar with our Global Learning XPrize, that is a prize that essentially has challenged the world to create applications so that students who cannot access enough education or education whatsoever can be handed a tablet and they can teach themselves how to read, write, and do math on their own. It is being tested out in Swahili in Tanzania in over 100 different villages. Now, we are a small team. I mean, the team that runs this prize is like 5 people. So all the work that needs to be done on the ground is being done by our partners at the World Food Program and UNESCO. So that's just one example of partnerships. We are so lucky to have so many people who want to work with us. And then finally, resources. So going back to that same example with global learning, we provide the resources for testing, and we provide the resources to the team so that they are better educated about how that they can better compete. With global learning, we had one of our partners, Google, provided 8,000 tablets for free so that we could actually test out these applications in Tanzania. In addition, we went out and built solar panels at those villages in Tanzania so that the kids could charge the tablets so that they could actually learn and test. So this is sort of a nice equation. It is definitely not an acronym, so please do not try to pronounce it. But this is how these are the ingredients to get to impact at scale. One other ingredient that I think is incredibly important are the people who are in our ecosystem. We like I said, we rely on the crowd, and the way to get to the crowd is by lots of marketing and lots of people, spokespeople, talking on our behalf. So in case some of these folks aren't familiar to you, these are, I have some names up here, but these are the people that help us get interest from around the world, to participate. In addition, we also have a number of partners who provide funding. Of course, we can't do this work without lots and lots of money because these are very complex prizes, and they have to be large-scale prize purses because we're solving some really big problems, and we need to incentivize people to work on them. So this is just a sample of our sponsors. The list is much, much longer than this, but I thought it might not be a good idea to go through all of it today with you. So let's get to the prizes themselves. So we currently have 8 active prizes. One of them is not on here, but I will talk about it in a minute. One of them was just awarded, which was our Women's Safety XPrize. And essentially, to date, we've had north of $140 million in prize purses. We've got another $100 million of prizes in the works that we look to put out to the world soon around things like cancer and Alzheimer's. I have a number of case studies in here, but I do want to stop here on the global learning one. This is the one that I talked about a little bit ago. So the prize itself is a $15 million prize. We are currently in testing in Tanzania, like I mentioned, in over 100 villages and thousands of children. We had more than 700 teams compete at the beginning, and now we're down to the top 5. Next year, we should know, basically the kids right now, we did baseline testing, now the kids are learning, we'll do endline testing, and the team that has made the most gains in the children's educational attainment will win. So we're very excited to see where this goes. In addition, and when I go back to impact scaling, so yes, we've got, obviously this is an important piece of history that we're helping these kids get access to education when they can't do it themselves. But in addition, some of the teams that have competed have put their apps in places like refugee camps in Syria, so that we're able to actually reach more children than just the kids that we're actually helping here. And ultimately, there will be a plan, or there is a plan in place to get to even more children once the prize is over. Let's see. So this is another one. This one is the Carbon X Prize, and this one is meant to address climate change. So essentially, we've challenged teams, with a $20 million prize, we've challenged teams to take CO2 and create useful things out of it. So it's basically capture the carbon and make something else. And we were very liberal with what people could make. So therefore, we've got teams that are creating building materials. We've got teams that have created clothing. One creates a high-end vodka. I hear it's lovely. And that blew my mind, to be honest. I was so surprised to hear that you could actually do that, but I'm sure the scientists in the room were not. I was a math major. But anyway, so now we are down to our 10 finalist teams. We were so fortunate to have the governments of Canada, Alberta, and Wyoming actually build test centers for us. So when I talk about XPrize generating resources so that we can, actually test and make sure and validate that these solutions are real, each of those governments spent over $20 million to build test centers so we could capture CO2 and then they could create things and we could help solve climate change. Okay, so this is the last one I'll talk about. The ANA Avatar XPrize is our most recently launched prize. If you are a teacher or if you are an innovator yourself, we would love for you and or your students to participate in this prize. Essentially, we are challenging the world to create an avatar so you could basically transport your thinking and your senses and your movement to a robot somewhere else in the world. Now, there are some really cool applications of this, like if you really want to get the best chef in Paris to cook you dinner tonight, and he's still in Paris, you could do that. But more importantly, we're thinking about things like there is a top-notch surgeon in LA, and there is a poor child in God knows where, somewhere in Africa, who needs some type of surgery, and this is the only guy who could do it, or the best guy or woman who could do it. We could make that happen with an avatar. So this prize is a $10 million prize purse. It's about 4 years. Registration is open all the way through the next year. Correct, Eric? Thank you. So if you are interested, please go to our website, xprize.org, and check that out, or you feel free to come talk to me afterwards. So you might be wondering, well, why those prizes? How do we get to those prizes? What are we going to do next? So I'd love to talk to you a little bit about a process that we have. It's called visioneering. Essentially, it is like an accelerator. We have sponsors who come in and say, you know what, I really am passionate about, let's say, feeding the next billion. I really care about making sure the next billion people in the world have enough nutrition, have enough food, can be productive citizens in the world. They come to us, but you know what? That's not actually a prize. You can't put that out to the world and say, create something that will feed people. So there's actually a lot of research that needs to go into this to understand what's the landscape that we're operating in. What's actually already being done to address these problems? Where is the white space? Where is the white space that actually needs a lot of attention? And when we find that, that's where we know XPrize needs to incentivize innovation so that people will work on that really big problem that nobody else is touching right now. So visioneering is like a 6-month incubator, 6 to 8 month incubator, where a sponsor can come in and say, I will give you funding, and you will we hire a team that will take an idea like feeding the next billion and create a prize design out of it. Now the cool thing is, this is where we also crowdsource. We put out a call to the crowd and say, look, we need to create a prize design around feeding the next billion. Send us your ideas. So this past year, and I will talk you through what the 5 designs are that we're looking at Visioneering 2018. This past year, for the 5 different prize areas that we are designing prizes around, we had over 400 applicants submit prize ideas, which is super cool. We are actually down to the top 10 right now, and in 3 weeks, they will get on stage at our summit, which is what these photos are from. To go head to head. It's two teams per idea, and they will go head to head, and we will be crowning winners in each of those areas. And so once that happens, then we can take those prizes and launch them. So here are the topics for a 2018 summit. As I mentioned, we're doing feeding the next billion. We're doing off-grid energy for the developing world. Apparently, there's something like 2 billion people in this world who actually don't have energy, and that not only does that mean that they can't refrigerate food and they can't read at night and things like that, they also can't be productive and contributing to society as much as we can because they don't have energy. And so this is actually a productivity prize of all things. Lifting farmers out of poverty. This one is about how do you basically get more of the economics to the poor farmers from that typically gets lost between when a farmer ships their goods and point of sale. So we have some very cool ideas coming in from that one, including, if we dehydrate the food, it's actually less expensive to transport because it's lighter. So there are some really cool ideas that came out of that one. Disaster prediction, I think we all would love more than a second's notice if there's going to be an earthquake. Enough said. And then saving the coral reefs. This one's interesting because I think not enough people understand why coral reefs are actually important beyond just pretty things to look at when you dive. So essentially, so what this does is it highlights a really important problem that not enough people are paying attention to. So those are the 5 teams for this year. And at the summit, we're going to spend a few days working on these, whittling down from 10 to 5 winners, and thinking about launching those prizes. The last day is where we're going to have all the audience come up with their ideas and pitch, and then we're going to whittle down to 5, and those 5 ideas, those passions that they care about so deeply, are going to be part of Visioneering 2019. Now, what's important for you is to know we will be doing another crowdsourcing prize ideas competition. It's a little bit easier than competing because you don't actually, in a prize, because you don't actually have to create like an avatar per se, but we really want to reach young people, older people, etc. alike, to provide ideas about, well, how can we engage the world in a way, how can we pose a question to the world that will engage them so that we can solve these problems? One of the ideas that I expect is going to come out of Visioneering 2019 is human longevity. So we are going to have to design a prize to help people live to like 600 years old, which is really cool. But anyway, so call to actions. Please do take a look at our website. If you have any questions after this, I will absolutely be around and happy to answer them for you as well. But so there's two main ways I think you can really engage right now. One is with the crowdsourcing of the prize ideas. Then that will come out on our website in about a month or two. And then the other one is with the ANI Avatar XPrize, which you can register for right now.